Hello, people. Welcome to the Cold War Prepper Monday night. I don't have a guest this evening, so it's just going to be us and see what we can do to make the world a better place, just among those of us who are here. So I don't know who all is here. I can't see that in my in my system. Can't even see how many people are here, but or how many likes or anything else. So. I guess we'll just start off with, I just posted a video. I had a small area of my store that I dedicated to preparedness and survivalism. And so I had some other products there that were not part of the store, kind of two different entities. And so I sold them there at the store. And hi, Little Lone Prepper. And so one of the items that I really, really liked that I bought and sold at the store, I bought it wholesale and sold it retail, was the Kelly kettle. So I just did a video on basically unboxing and my initial impressions of the Kelly kettle. I've had these boxes out in the garage now for about 4 years. Hi, Linda. And so basically, I'm going to be doing some testing with the Kelly kettle here in the near future. I am not a distributor with them. I don't get any affiliate fees or anything else. And so, these are just phenomenal pieces of equipment. What I wanted to really open it up and find out, hello, Coffee First. The main reason I wanted to open it up before I actually do some cooking on it was I wanted to find out whether or not I could use, hello, Tofu, whether or not I could use the Safe Heat, which is the alcohol-based gel that you use like a sterno for the cooking lines in hotels and stuff like that. So I found out, yes, the Safe Heat does fit inside the firebox of the Kelly kettle, and that means that with the Kelly kettle in a safe environment where you're not transferring heat, anything underneath of it, like a wooden table or something like that, should be safe for indoor use. I would still encourage you to use a one of these. Where is it? It's right here. Yeah, there we go. I got these all over the house. So this is a carbon monoxide detector. So I strongly encourage you have one of those in the vicinity anytime you're doing any kind of indoor cooking. Oh, excuse me. It just got dry all of a sudden. But so as I was out looking in the garage, I found out that I have 4 of them. 2 small ones and 2 large ones. I guess I sold the 2 medium ones. And so one of the things I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be giving away a small Kelly kettle when I reach 10,000 subscriptions. And you'll do that raffle thing that they do on YouTube. And when I get to 25,000 subscriptions, then I'll give away the big one. So for sure there are 2 prizes coming in the very near future. One's going to be a small Kelly kettle and one's going to be a large Kelly kettle. So we can look forward to that happening here in the near future. Let me tell you, I finished my second reading of this one. So we'll be talking about this one a week from Thursday. And so this is book 4, Forsaking Home, by an American. He is also the author of our nonfiction that we'll be doing chapters 3 and 4 of tomorrow night. And that's going to be EDC and I believe shelter. Let me check. EDC and shelter. Yeah, EDC and shelter. So those are the 2 chapters we'll be discussing tomorrow night. I think we can have some fun with EDC. So everybody, take a look at your EDC and be prepared, that we'll have a discussion about EDC tomorrow night. I might ask 1 or 2 of you to come on and just empty your pockets in front of your camera, and let's see what you do as far as an EDC. No problem, Dragon Slayer. I'm just very glad that you're here. So thank you very much for being here. Stray Kitten, welcome. And Coffee First, welcome. Gosh, all kinds of great people here this evening. So I guess what we can do is we can say, okay, what's going on in the world, and what is Lee doing about it? And hopefully that'll generate, hello, who's your prepping nurse, some discussion out there from you all about what are you doing about it. So first off, we did have two X-class CMEs hit the Earth over the course of the last 48 to 72 hours. Hello, Rapture Prepping. So we did have two, and that's probably what's causing a lot of the tectonic activity that we're seeing. So the Ring of Fire has been very active. We had another 6.4 earthquake in Turkey with another high aftershock. Dutch Sense, if you get a chance, subscribe to him. He's probably one of the better guys right now on YouTube as far as explaining tectonic activity and everything else. And he is predicting that it's going to follow up that fault line. There's an S-shaped fault line that goes up into Romania. So he is predicting that there's going to be, a 6 or higher in the Romania area in the next 48 to 72 hours. He's also saying that he is looking for a lot more activity to take place, especially down in Tonga, in that region, just northeast of Caroline Islands, and that area, which is kind of the antipole of what's going on in Turkey. And then it's going to follow the Ring of Fire around, and then, of course, come down the San Andreas Fault and everything else. So we can look for a lot of tectonic activity to take place here in the very near future. Now, man-induced stuff that's going on, gosh, this train derailment up in Ohio, it's something else. I just can't believe what's going on. I don't like to react to things the first day to 3 days after they happen, because we never really get the truth. Well, I guess a lot of times we never really get the truth, but the question becomes one of, we don't get all of the available facts for the first couple of days. And so I try to avoid saying anything about that. But gosh, I tell you what, if there ever was a case for making sure that you have a good bug out bag, then what happened in Ohio at the beginning of this month is probably one of the best cases of warranting having a bug out bag in your vehicle. I went to Waco, just south of Waco, Saturday morning. We, if you do any volunteer work in the church, and there's a possibility that you could be exposed either to minors or to seniors, like me, then you have to take what's called EIM, or Ethics in Ministry, and it's a 3-hour class on, how to identify potential abuse in the victim, as well as potential abusers, and then the steps to take to report those and make sure that the everything is done up and up, and that the person gets punished for whatever crime they may have committed against either a youth or a senior. And so I went up there for that, and what had happened was, since I sold my store, I have not been carrying my get home bag in my truck because of all the thefts that are going on. And so for the first time, I put my get home bag back in my pickup when I drove an hour and a half north and on the freeway. And then I also made sure that I had the thing that I normally wear over here that I haven't been wearing, because it rubs the area where my incision was for the hip replacement. So I've been wearing it kind of cross draw, and so I wore it for the first time to this function on Saturday as well. Yeah, isn't that true, Linda, that finally FEMA's going to do something for them? I can't believe it took them this long. Just said it didn't meet their parameters. Well, we need to redefine parameters then. That's all I've got to say about that. Hi, Coffee First. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Let me see. Rapture Prepping. So anyhow, yeah, so what happened the last time, I have to go in every 3 to 4 years. I had what's called a Nissen fundoplication. So with a Nissen fundoplication, they go in and they take your esophagus and wrap it around your stomach so that basically it stops GERD or gastro whatever reflux disease. And oh my gosh, you're in denial. Wow. Upwind and upriver. I'll tell you about that here in just a little bit. So anyhow, along with that, I have to go in and they take kind of like a Roto-Rooter tool and they expand it. And so they have to go in and expand my esophagus because like right now it's getting hard to where I can't even eat bread. It'll expand in my throat and I'll choke on it. So I was getting ready to have this throat expansion done and I'm laying on the table. And this is a teaching hospital, Baylor Scott and White. And so the surgeon was there and he had this young guy with him. And they started talking and he goes, oh, wow, that's kind of a unique last name. He says, I had a girl I went to high school with that had that last name. I said, really? Which high school? And he says, and he told me, and I said, oh, okay. He says, was her name? And I said, yes, her name is. And he says, oh, I wanted to date her so bad. So I had to tell her that one of the guys that had a crush on her is now a gastroenterology GE surgeon. And or at least he was doing his what do they call that, residency, and I was one of his first patients, so that was kind of neat. Went in for one time, and they were getting ready to put me under, and they put the IV in and started to give me the drip, and then they started to do their thing. I said, wait, we're not there yet, and they'd blown the IV, and they had to go get another IV and start a new IV because the initial medications weren't taking effect to knock me out so that they could gas me and do everything else they needed to do. Wow, 38 miles from the train wreck, unbelievable. So in 1997, I think it was, we had a lightning strike hit the pump for our sewage system, and it was a half-mile downstream from where our wellhead was for our drinking water on the same stream. What we didn't realize was as the sewage was backing up a half-mile downstream, there was a fracture in the karst that was actually taking that raw sewage and putting it directly down into the wellhead of where our drinking water wellhead was. So don't always count on being upstream being anything that, or upwind being that great for you. I would take major precautions anyway. You see, Rapture Ready. What does Rapture Ready have to say here real quick? Yep. That's true. You don't want to be like Rick in The Walking Dead. Remember, he was shot by that guy, and then he was in the hospital, and he woke up in the hospital, and everybody else has turned into a zombie. Are you all following The Last of Us? Have you been watching it? Fantastic new series. I think it's on HBO Plus, and it's basically the story of a guy. The zombie apocalypse happens, and so he ends up several years later from Austin, Texas, and they even had Austin Metro buses on it. And so he went from here up to Boston, and he was in remember that when what was his name, Spider or whatever, and had to go into New York, and they had turned New York into a walled prison, or at least Manhattan Island. That's kind of what they did to Boston. And so this guy has to break out of there, and then he's going west to find his brother in Wyoming, and all the different things that happens to them as he's making this trek to get his family back together. And then there's this subplot of this young girl, 14-year-old girl, evidently has been infected and bitten by one of the monsters, but she did not turn. And so evidently she has blood that makes her immune to the disease. And so they're trying to get her to this organization of people called Fireflies because they have the medical technology that they can take her blood and turn that into a vaccine and cure the disease. So that's kind of the whole plot there where we are so far. Let me see. Wow, I did not know that. I don't watch that much on the news anymore. I don't trust them. Um, so, what I get from Prepper Dog and a couple other guys, and they've been pretty good keeping me informed so far. I also really like Prepping by Faith. She does a pretty good job of telling me what's going on. So let me see. Okay. Isn't that the truth? Golly. And it's one of the things that I find kind of interesting. I don't know if you've seen it in the news or not, but we had a major incident here in Austin over the weekend. Evidently, some car. Well, we had three major incidents. So one of them was we had drag car racing, spinning of wheels and everything else at a major intersection downtown, blocked it off. The police arrived, tried to recoup the intersection, and while they were doing that, the people in the cars were shooting at the police with fireworks. Evidently, almost set one police car on fire. And so anyhow, so they got that under control. Then there was another, a lot of shootings in the city last night or over the weekend. And then the third one was they had this thing they call a mansion rage. And evidently, it's a new thing on social media that a bunch of teenagers, and they've got, they left behind artifacts from 3 or 4 different high schools. And, but they agreed on where they were going to go on social media, got together. Then this family was out of town. So they took over their very expensive home, trashed it, did everything they could to destroy the house and everything that was in it, and had a big party there for a while. And, this family, I mean, it's a guy, his wife, I think, young toddler, and then an infant. So they didn't even have anybody that went into that school or anything else. It's just malicious pranksterism on behalf of the children, of the youth of our country. And I'm going to say, that's probably what's going to be happening. So I'm looking here. I'm getting Canadian Prepper saying that there's a major alert. The United Kingdom is sending emergency messages, and Russia is sending the highest level of nuclear alert. We don't know whether that's true or not. There are a lot of these guys send out headlines and stuff, and they live off of excitement, and so I don't do that. Linda Bob says our president went to Ukraine today and gave them more money. He should have gone to Ohio. I absolutely agree. What gets me is it took him 2 years to go to the border to see the problem that he created, and he's unwilling to do anything about it. And he's taken money away from it, as a matter of fact. And, those of us here in Texas have to live with it on a day-to-day basis. But he spends all that money to go over to Ukraine and give them even more. So, I think we are committed now, and I have a feeling we'll find out what happens with Господин President Putin's address tomorrow. I don't think anything good is going to come from it, but I'm not 100% sure that something dramatically bad is going to come from it. We'll just have to wait and see. Remember that Moscow is about 8 hours ahead of us. So, we could look for that major announcement being anytime starting about noon Moscow time, which is at 4:00 a.m. our time here in Central Texas. Okay. Oh, rapture prepping. I'm sorry to hear that. So hopefully things will do a lot better for you. Gosh, that's bad news. I hope that things work out for the much better. Um, so let me kind of go off on another tangent. Hello, Rapture Prepping. You're saying thank you, not hi. Okay, but let me kind of go off onto another direction. I want to talk about the balloons. One of the things that is kind of disconcerting to me is people see things and they don't know what they see, and then they complain about the things that they see. A couple good examples. Since 1967, there has been a terminating exercise for the special forces. So special forces has phase one, they go to school, and then they have phase two where they kind of do their specialty, their MOS specialty. And that could be engineering, it could be medicine as a field medic, it could be, um, what else? Intelligence. I mean, they do a specialty. And during that time, they also go to language school because I've had lots of special forces troopers in my different language schools. And then phase three is they go to their very intensive infantry type training. This is where they're going to learn to shoot and scoot and do under, clandestine things and stuff like that. They have had since 1967 a culminating exercise. Now, remember, these guys are counterinsurgents, okay? So they are going to be dropped into an urban or a rural area, and they're going to try to form teams of people to go against whatever the bad guy is that we've declared. So they have to train in real environments. And they always train at the end of their phase three, and it's called Robin Sage. And ever since YouTube and Facebook has come in around, every time there's an announcement that there's going to be a Robin Sage, and this has only been the last 8, 10, 12 years, all of a sudden it's imminent martial law and it's imminent this and it's imminent that. They don't know that this has been going on, for 33, 50, 56 years. And it happens every year. And, people get really, really excited about it. The other thing is I want to kind of take a look at English words, okay? If I say shot, what comes into your mind? So it could be he shot something. It could be a piece of lead that is used to put onto a fishing line as a weight to go down into the water. It could be a photo shot. I mean, there are so many different interpretations of it. It's sometimes disconcerting in the fact that we may not be speaking the same thing. Likewise, when we talk about a balloon, the first thing that pops into our mind are the helium things that we put at the end of a stick and put it in a vase, and that's our birthday party, right? And so these are not those kinds of balloons, okay? Now, the next balloon up is a weather balloon. So a weather balloon is usually going to be a smaller to medium-sized balloon. It's going to have about the size of a desktop, maybe a tower computer. That's the size of the package it's going to have on it. So what's happening is that package is taking a couple readings as it's going up in the air. So it's got an altimeter, and it's got an altimeter in it. It's got a barometric pressure indicator. It's got a temperature gauge, so it knows the temperature. And so let me see, it gives temperature, barometric pressure, altitude. And that's about all it does. Humidity. And then What they're doing is they've got a ground radar. So there's so that little transponder on the on the balloon, has a radio transmitter receiver. It's sending all that information down, and this radar basically is receiving it. But the radar is also measuring minute movement as it goes up so that they get what's called wind direction and speed. So if the balloon's going up and all of a sudden it goes this way, you know that the different thermocline of the air, that's the altitude at which it's moving a different direction. You can also measure the speed, because now you know the distance away from you. And so as it moves, you can calculate that with trigonometry and find out, hey, it's now moving at X miles per hour. Therefore, the winds aloft are at X miles an hour. Very small package. Now, in order to have a weather balloon over the US, they would have to have a fixed site recording the radar, the movements of that balloon as it goes over something, or it would have to be tethered to a satellite. And so the satellite would be doing the geosynchronous identification of wind direction and speed while it's reporting the other data up to the satellite. Then you've got to have this Skynet type thing reporting it back to China. So that's kind of an information on that. Then you have a slightly larger balloon, like the one we finally shot down over the East Coast near South Carolina. And that had a larger package on it. So people are complaining that we used a $400,000 Sidewinder to shoot down a balloon that we did not know really for sure what it was. If you take a look at it, it did not fit any of the packages that we typically see with a balloon. Also, the fact that it was solar powered made it very suspicious. Why do you need solar power in a balloon? So I got into a discussion with a guy on another channel, and he says, well, they shouldn't have used Sidewinders because Sidewinders are heat-seeking missiles. I said, okay. He says, and they're very ineffective and we wasted money. And I said, so how many of them failed? He says, what? And I said, how many of the Sidewinders that we fired at the 4 different balloons failed because we used the wrong kind of missile? And he didn't answer me. And I know the answer. We fired 5 and shot down 4. That's an 80% kill ratio. That's pretty doggone good. It sounds like we used the right missile. So what happens is you've got this, the silver that's around, that's holding the balloon together as well as the package, radiates heat. And at that altitude, you have an awful lot of cold. So it's reflecting heat. That becomes the heat source. So yes, a heat-seeking missile is good and can be used at that altitude. Another one said, why didn't we just send an A-10 up? And the answer to that is because it's way outside or up above the A-10's maximum altitude. And you don't just, go this way and then fire the guns and hope that they shoot it down. These balloons take a little bit more than a pop to try to get them to come down. So, people are complaining about that, but we don't complain about the fact that we spend $400,000 every time we send a jet pilot up to shoot down a drone in training. So I'm okay. If you want to, you can shoot down all the balloons coming from China you want to. I don't care if they are now claiming that they were private citizens' experiments. If that were the case, you typically announce those in advance. If I'm going to do an experiment from the University of Texas at El Paso, I'm going to let people around me know. I'm going to let the flight controllers know that I have an uncontrolled balloon that I'm setting off, and it may interfere with traffic until it gets to a designated altitude. So I'm going to let people know what I'm doing. So if those are truly experimental or school or whatever, like we're now being told, how come nobody informed the proper authorities that they were going to be launching an unmanned, unpropelled, uncontrollable balloon? That just doesn't seem logical to me. So, that tells me that there was probably, I'm going to guess, nefarious intentions behind the balloons. Now, here's what I think. That this is Lee, just being Lee. If anything, we are giving way too much of what we have to Ukraine. The Ukrainian thing that's going on is I equate it to 460 Battle of Thermopylae. And in 460, what did I do? In 460, the Spartans met the Persians. Gosh, I did something. I hit something, and now I don't see chat. So let me see if I can't. But the Martians, I'm sorry, the Spartans met the Persians at the Battle of Thermopylae. So there were only 300 Spartans plus a whole bunch of other. There were some Athenians and some others that were there as well. Total force was about 3,000 against 70,000, and so I think that's what's going on right now in Europe. Is we've got this war of attrition, where we've got we keep sending in more and more, but there's not that much there to win. But we're hoping to take out a whole bunch of these guys. But the bad thing is that what is happening is, gosh, this has got me. No, I want to stay in the studio, but I want to be able to see my exit solo layout. There we go. How about that? Nope, that didn't work. I don't want to mute. So I don't know what I did. I touched something and now I can't see any. Let me see. Present. Share screen. Nope. Don't want to do that. Oh, there. Maybe that. Look at that. That could be it. Exit full screen. There we go. Yay, I found it. Yay. Okay. So anyhow, it's kind of a war of attrition where we're trying to kill as many of them as possible and using the Ukrainians as our surrogate. Here's the problem. We're running out of ammunition. And so as we're running out of ammunition, what happens if they come after us? And I think that's the decision we're going to have to make here pretty soon, is at what point do we run out of ammunition? Do we stop giving to them? I don't know, Linda. That's a good question. Well, and here's the problem, Dragon Slayer. I want to agree with you, but I also want to disagree with you. See, in 1993, after the Soviet Union fell, the three largest holders of nuclear stockpiles in the world just ended up being the United States, Russia, and Ukraine. So we had the Treaty of, I think it's Budapest in 1993. And the Soviet Union, or Russia, and the United States both promised to defend Ukraine against any aggressor if they would give up their nuclear weapons. They did. So they kept their part of the deal. However corrupt you want to think they are, we made an agreement with them. We said, if you do this, we'll do that. It's our time for us to do that if we are honorable people and keep our word and what we're going to do. So that's, either we keep our word or we don't. And that's the bad thing. I kind of want to agree with you. I wish we hadn't made the agreement. I wish we weren't there. I'm a professional soldier. I don't want war. That's the last thing we want. So what are they doing with all the money that was given to them? Buying weapons, buying all kinds of stuff, keeping their people alive, keeping food out there. They have no other source of revenue, so they are completely dependent upon the money that's going in. Remember that they are the number one exporter of wheat and corn, soy, and sunflower seeds, sunflower oil, and in Europe. And so they can't do that because they do that through the Black Sea on their ports. Odessa is their biggest. and they can't trade. They can't sell anything. So they don't have any revenue coming into the country. So they're using our money. Basically, we're funding their entire economy, us and other members of NATO. So that's what they're doing with the money that we're giving them. Not that I agree with it, but that's what they're doing with it. I think you're probably right. I think that we are Ray Dalio says we're at the fourth turning, and that the Chinese currency is probably going to be the new currency, the new world reserve currency. And I don't disagree with him on that. We see a lot of things going on with the yuan and trying to make it the world currency. Of course, just recently, Russia said that they would no longer sell their oil in dollars, that they would have to be in rubles. And then, of course, the Chinese have entered into an agreement with Saudi Arabia that all oil is going to be sold in yuan. So it looks like that turning is happening, and that the Chinese are going to become the new global reserve currency. However, China has to do it very quickly because they have a depression going on in their country. And if they aren't careful and they push their economy too much harder, they're going to be in a depressive revolt. So, I think they have to be very, very cautious how they do that. We're running right on the point of almost a depression ourselves. Yes, I agree. We are running out of our strategic oil reserves. And the whole purpose was to buy votes for the midterm election. So everywhere that the strategic oil reserve is going internally to our country, and that's trying to keep the price of fuel down because there was a bad decision made not to pump oil or to refine our own oil here in the U.S. And that decision was made the day that the person came into office, and that shut down U.S. domestic oil production. So now we have to buy from abroad, and they aren't anywhere as clean as we are, and that's expensive. So the way we get the price of oil down is we take our strategic oil reserve, deplete it, and now if we get into another conflagration worldwide, then that's it. No, I didn't say they did keep their word. They got rid of all of their nukes, and we gave them our word that we would defend them. So it's our word, not theirs. So do we keep our honor? Do we keep our word, our part of the promise? They kept theirs. Are we going to keep ours? That's the question. And that's that 1993 defense agreement. And, so, I mean, we can go about the world really nice saying, you do this, we promise we'll do this. And then when it comes time to do it, we just, oh no, we aren't going to do that. We decided we didn't mean to keep our word. We just wanted you to do what we told you to. I mean, we've done enough of that to where we have a bad reputation anyway, but this is one of those opportunities where we can, rightfully or wrongfully, we do what we say we were going to do. And that's us. Nobody wants war, Tracy. Nobody, believe me, especially the soldiers, because we're the first to die. So Matthew 24 talks about wars and rumors of wars. It talks about a whole bunch of things. It talks about a lot of things that we see going on. But at the very end, there's something that's very, very important that people forget. And the very last of that, I think it's 60, verse 60, somewhere around in there. It says that this is the beginning of the pains, and this will not come to fruition until the gospel has been preached to the whole world. So I don't think the gospel has been preached to the whole world yet. So when we take those other things out of context, that can cause people to be a little bit more than worried. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. Evil is running rampant, and things are not looking good. I don't know anything about that, but I will tell you that I had a conversation with a friend. He called me this evening, and so the question became one of he believes this thing that there's an entire division of Chinese in Canada. And I had to explain to him, if that were the case, if we felt there was a threat by the Chinese army in Canada, the 10th Infantry Division would not be sitting at Fort Drum still. The 1st Infantry Division would not still be sitting at Fort Riley. And the 1st Special Forces Group and the 24th Infantry Division would not still be sitting at Fort Lewis, Washington. They would be deployed to the Canadian border. There was a report that there was a mine purchased by the Chinese, and they brought in their own military to protect the mine. It was about a company. And so that part of it is true. And so I'll get to you in just a minute, Linda. And so, but he's afraid we're going to be attacked by the Chinese from the north. He's another one of those Red Dawn people. And then he says, well, what about the southern border? I said, well, now we're talking. Now we have asymmetrical warfare opportunities like you would not believe. There have been an awful lot of Chinese who have been captured at the southern border. And if they are sleeper cells or even active cells, they don't even have to be sleeper cells. And they're coming up across for the sole purpose of, messing with our infrastructure and, doing some of these things, taking out the grid or taking out train things or whatever, then that is something to be concerned about. But I don't think there's going to be a military attack on the U.S. I did a video a while back. I did an analysis of all the troop carrying transports, whether they be seagoing or airgoing, and then I took a look at the Table of Organization Equipment, TONE, of all the Russian units. And if we assume, now they don't have any aircraft that are capable of flying from Russia to the U.S. without refueling. So, and they don't have any refuelers, air-to-air refuelers. So even if they had air-to-air refuelers and they sent them out, then those air-to-air refuelers would not make it back because they wouldn't have enough fuel. So you'd have to refuel each other too. But anyhow, so let's assume that they can get just about a division. And they put them on the airplane, they fly them, and then they get to Seattle, Tacoma, the closest place where they could attack. And now the airplanes have to force land. They don't have any way to get back for reinforcements. Now you've got one airborne division sitting in Seattle, Tacoma, and they're attacking one ground division that's already there. We will have seen them coming in. We can have other troops brought in. So that's nothing to be worried about. The other one is if they come across the sea. Well, they don't have that many ocean-going assault craft. The Russians had enough for a division, but they lost 3 of their Alligator class, which is the largest of their troop landing ships in the Black Sea. Not the Black Sea, in the Chornomorye Mori, the Black Sea, due to ground fire from the other side. So they've they don't have to. They can't attack us. We're pretty safe. And then that's only assuming that they don't encounter us or any of our allies as they're transiting the air or the Pacific Ocean to get over here, because I'm sure we would shoot down 1 or 2 of them, wouldn't you think? They aren't just going to have free transit the whole way across, or we'll sink 1 or 2 of their boats. So I am not worried about a Chinese or a Russian invasion of the U.S. unless they do other things first, take down the grid, a lot of things they could do that would precede an invasion. But until that happens, I don't think that's going to happen. So you're probably talking about the Ukrainians enriching uranium. I don't know. I do know that they don't have a means of delivery. So, it's kind of like being in the middle of the desert with $100 bill in your pocket. It doesn't do you any good, unless you have something to spend it on. Same thing. If you have a nuclear warhead, you can have enriched uranium. We have enriched uranium in all of our nuclear power plants. And so, that you have to look at the whole thing. So Linda says, what I'm saying is they give their word to us, the citizens, and don't do what they say. Oh, you're talking about our own government. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Okay, I tend to believe the 144,000 will be finished. We'll finish spring. We can have a discussion on that. I can tell by your uh, Avatar, what you believe, and we can have a discussion offline about that. We can go through it, but I don't believe that there's going to be a second coming 2.0 and a second coming 3.0. So that tells you where I am about the rapture. If you raise all the dead and living and dead and meet him in the sky, then why would he come a second time after the second coming? So you got the second coming, the rapture, and then the second coming at the end of the millennia. That just doesn't make sense. And so, we can have a discussion about that offline, but it's not biblically sound. So anyhow, and to get back to it, when I was in seminary in 1980, that's 1970, become a Southern Baptist minister. The whole that whole thing that the rapture caught it was nothing. Nobody believed it until 1970, and there was a book came out by Howell Lindsey called The Late Great Planet Earth. It got a little bit of traction, and then about a little while later, they had a movie series called Left Behind, and that's what really got it going. So I think there's been a scrambling to find scripture to support the theory ever since, but that was not popular. That nobody even talked about it until 1970. So all former Chinese citizens have served in the military. That is absolutely correct. Every single male from China is a soldier, and the vast majority of females are too. Same thing with the North Koreans. So you're absolutely right about that, Jack. And they are trained to kill. I mean, that's their job. Justin Trudeau will welcome the China with open arms. And I'm not willing to go that far. I don't like Justin Trudeau, but I'm not willing to make that statement. I would have to see it first. Well, here's Tracy. Here's Mr. Putin is the number one game in Russia is chess. They're always thinking 5 or 6 moves ahead. The United States plays checkers while the rest of the world is playing chess. So we're trying to play catch up while the rest of the world is already thinking 4 or 5 moves ahead of us. And I would not be surprised if Putin is not doing the exact same thing with his speech tomorrow. Why would you announce that? I mean, if you look back, on December 8th, 1945, President Roosevelt did not make an announcement on December 1st that we were going to go to war with Japan on December 8th, then that he would make a declaration of war on December 8th. So, this does not, like I said, it does not scare me, but it doesn't reassure me what's happening tomorrow. I don't think he's going to announce a state of war or anything like that. We keep drawing all these red lines. We had the Obama's red lines. And so I was asking a friend today, is the red line, is Putin's red line the same color red as Obama's red lines? And so we see all these red lines keep being drawn and trespassed and crossed, and nobody does anything about it. So, I don't know. We'll just find out what's going on. I'll wait and see what happens, and believe it out when we get there. Sure, and I'll be happy. I'll be happy to have that discussion with you offline. Are you going to study premillennial eschatology, mid-millennial, or post-millennial? Because there's 3 different. The rapture is so unsure that there are those who think it's going to happen before, during, or after. So you got 3 different crowds. So if you can't have one consistent ideology, then it kind of leaves it open to where there's multiple interpretations. And I think that's what you're going to find is there is no one interpretation of that. I wish there was, but the one that we know is there is going to be a second coming, and and that's the one I look forward to. Hello, Prepper Book Club. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Where are we? We got 10 more minutes. So let me tell you. What we got going on here in the near future. So tomorrow night we do have the book club, and we do have chapters 3 and 4, EDC, Everyday Carry, and Shelter, and that's from the nonfiction book club. Then a week from Thursday we have the fiction book club, and this is a fantastic series, the Forsaking Home series. Now I am reading another series. Was it you? I let me see, I think it was Dragon Slayer who recommended, he said, can you get this guy, Franklin Horton, on as an interview? So I'm reading his book, and so I'm about a third of the way through the first book. I bought one, and what I found out was when I went to Franklin Horton's website that he recommends that character is introduced in book 2 of this series. And so read this series, books 1 and 2, before you get into the other series. So that's what I'm doing, is kind of, doing whatever. Amen, Linda. You are there. There, Saint John of Hippo had one of the best explanations that I have ever heard in my life. So what he said was, he had a dream, and in his dream, he went out to the shore of the ocean, and this is the Mediterranean, went out to the shore in the Mediterranean, and he dug a hole in the sand, and then he took a cup and he went over to the Mediterranean. Or this is his dream. He saw this little boy doing it, and so this little boy is taking this cup and pouring it into the hole that he dug in the. Thank you, Jay Creatures, that he put in the sand. And so Saint John of Hippo says, "What are you trying to do?" He says, and he looks up and he says, "I'm trying to put the Mediterranean into this hole, and I keep filling up the water and it keeps going down. So I know I can empty the Mediterranean." And he says, "Oh, foolish child, there's too much water. You can't put it in that little hole." And the child looked up and took on angelic appearance and said, "And that's how it is with God. We have something spiritual that is immense, glorious, that is unboundable, and we're trying to fit it into these human minds." And so, that's the beauty of it, is that we don't understand everything, but we're given just enough to understand as we become capable of understanding it. No, I agree with you, Pat. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I don't like. I am an isolationist. I firmly believe that we should close all of our military bases overseas. That we should not fund anything. That we should, if countries over there want to duke it out, let them duke it out. We have enough problems here at home. We exacerbate some of those problems by being overseas. Why not just pull back here and take care of our own people? We have enough problems here in our own country that need our focused attention, that need our money, that need our full attention, and we don't need diversions like what we have currently going on over there. So kind of, I'm 100% with you on that. I think you make a very poignant observation that I will support 105%, because I think that's, you and I are of the same mindset. Was that you, Jay Creature, that recommended that I read these books? Trying to figure. I know somebody asked me to interview the author, and so I said I'd read the books before I tried to get an interview with him. But I think that was Jay. Pepper Book Club says they like them. Now I've got one other that I'm going to. So of course I've got all these books I've got stacked up to read. I want to read this one next, Black Autumn. This is Jeff Kirkham. He's the owner of Black Rifle Coffee. So evidently he did that. So W.J. Lundy and Michael G. Hopf. Okay, I'll write those down when I do the review of this. You know something? Rapture prepping here. Here's where boomers have a little bit of an advantage. We had shelters. We had shelters equipped with food. We had shelters equipped with Geiger counters. We had shelters equipped with air filters. We had shelters equipped with sanitation equipment for every single citizen in our country. You can probably still see some of the signs in some obscure places in older buildings throughout the country. And the citizens complained about the cost because you have to keep fresh food. You know, the food only had, back in those days, we didn't have the mountain house and everything that we have of today. So basically it was canned goods that we were storing. And most of those were emergency boat rations. That's what I had in my shelter in my next door neighbor's backyard. 1963, we were building shelters. Everybody, at least, you know, I was in El Paso. My next door neighbor had a fallout shelter in his backyard. I had one in my backyard. They were subsidizing those for you to build your own and take care of them. And then the citizens said, you know, after the Cuban Missile Crisis, after we told Gorbachev, no, it wasn't Gorbachev, it was Khrushchev. After we told Khrushchev to pull everything out, or there would be World War III, he pulled everything out. We thought we were safe. We knew that mutually assured destruction, if we tried to destroy them, they would try to destroy us. And so that wasn't going to happen. So we said, you know what, it's too much money spent. And so we can put that to other uses. Of course, it never got to those other uses. But anyhow, that's we did have shelters up until the mid 60s, and we had lots of them, very well stocked. And we as citizens were very well trained in what to do in case of a nuclear attack. And we just got away from it. You know, we had other priorities, and people wanted to spend their money on other things. I think the thing that primarily took over from the money went primarily from the shelters to the space race to get the first man in space and the first man in orbit and the first man around the moon. You know, because I can remember watching the Mercury series live. Oh God, we get up early in the morning to watch the Mercury series and the Gemini series and then the Apollo. So that was quite a time to be alive. That does not surprise me. Although there are portions of Mexico I can take you to that will show you that it's much, much worse. I've in El Paso, being a native of El Paso, Juarez is across the border, and that's one of the 5 largest cities in Mexico. There are people who live in cardboard houses and burn bituminous coal. And so all of the bad air quality ratings that El Paso gets stuck with is because coal burning warmers in cardboard homes that blow up and catch fire and everything else don't stop at the border. That bad smoke comes on across. Let me see. Take a couple more of these. Then I guess we can call it quits. Yes, wholeheartedly. We need to take care of ourselves first. Oh, really? Okay. No, okay. I think it was Jay Creature that actually recommended Franklin Horton to me. So, that's a good question. I don't think it would, because EPA, you have to get a license to drill from EPA. And you also have to get it from Bureau of Land Reclamation. So, you know, if you can't get the license to do that. Most of the oil wells are on private land, and then there are some on public land. I dated a girl, and she her family had like 15 different oil wells and natural gas wells at their place in Talpa, Texas, population 120. And but yeah, so they what happens is They didn't do the drilling themselves, but Halliburton came in, did the experimenting and everything else, and they pay them a fraction of the oil, plus they give them, a residual on everything that's done because they're drilling oil off their property and they still own the mineral rights. Uh, I only had one child too, so yeah, there we go. I guess we are the collapsing generation. Um, yeah, and so the electrical generation we had was basically a bicycle, pedals, and you could also lift them up and use them as hand pedals. But that was that on an alternator, and so that's what produced 12 volts of electricity. The 12 volts of electricity did one of two things. It either ran your lighting or it ran your air pump that was sucking in the clean air and putting it through the filter, so you didn't get any fallout coming in through the filters. And then, of course, the overpressure took any obnoxious odors from your porta potty that you had inside the shelter with you outside the exhaust tube. In theory, I'm not so sure that would have worked in reality, but yeah, everything was foot pedal power or hand power, and there wasn't that much. Let me see, Rapture ready. Uh, Gosh, I'm way behind. Um, yeah, I can understand that. Um, yeah, and so I went to Blessed Sacrament Elementary and Middle School, and so it was just one long hallway, and we had to go into the middle hallway and then put our backs to the wall, our knees up, and our head between our legs, and all that kinds of stuff. Yeah. No, I don't think we'll do nuke drills again. I don't think so, Janae. And the reason I don't is because I think our government doesn't want to scare the people. Although, if they did it the right way, it wouldn't be scaring them; it would be preparing them. But that's sometimes you just don't understand what our government does. Um, Oh yeah, I'm sure. See, and here where I am, I've got granite underneath where I am. So you go down 5 feet, and it's nothing but granite. Um, Not only that, Jack. Not only is it a good way of avoiding criminal prosecution, the world is economically, financially unstable. And every time that we have had a worldwide depression, the way that we got out of it was through war, through the manufacturing. Number one, we have to reduce the population so that there's not that much demand. And so war, of course, attrits an awful lot of people. And then number two, you get full employment because all the people left behind are fully emerged into building the war machine to keep the war going, and of course, providing more people, the sacrificial lambs to go into that combat. So, yes, so number one, to avoid the crimes that you're talking about, and number two, because it's going to be more financially stable. Remember 1984, the book by Orwell. Winston and what's her name, his girlfriend, that he's running down into the sleazy parts of London to meet. They get the copy of the book by Goldstein, and in chapter 3, Goldstein is talking about the three countries: Oceania, um, Eurasia, and East Asia. I think are the big three countries of the world. And the reason that they continue to fight with each other is because nobody gets killed. Okay, there are very few deaths. They're just constantly fighting with each other, and so there's these other areas that they've agreed upon will be the war zones, and so everybody's fighting over those war zones. So the other people are getting killed, not them. But the whole reason is to keep the entire economy focused on hating the other people and keep the whole economy focused on producing war materials. And so I think 1984 is coming so true in so many other ways, other than the facts police and all this other kinds of stuff. If you read that, the stuff that Goldstein, the Goldstein book inside of 1984, that Winston and gosh, forget her name. Anyhow, are reading. That will explain everything that you see going on internationally on the war fronts today, and I totally believe that. Yes, and we have the same thing here in Central Texas. We have a lot of because we are on the Balcones Fault, which is an extension of the New Madrid Fault, and so anyhow, there's an awful lot of caves here that are caused by the fault line, but that's not where I would like to be. I'm not so sure that we're not going to have a whole bunch of different things happening all at the same time. So there could be earthquakes, wars, famines, another plague. So there's all kinds of things I think are going to be happening at one time, and that's where we're going to be. We're getting close to the end here, so let me see here. Well, okay. So now next week, the good news is I watched YouTube for a long time before I decided that I wanted to go into having my own channel. And so some of the people that I watched at the very onset are just they're still here. I'm surprised that they haven't grown. One of them is a lady from upstate Michigan, I believe it is, and her name is Potpourri, Prepper Potpourri. And so um, she will be my guest for the discussion next Monday night. Strongly recommend you take a look at her channel, get familiar with some of the things that she does. Um, she she has a pretty good channel, and so I liked her. I liked another guy called Prepared Mind 101, and but he designed a knife for Schrade. Schrade got bought out by I think it was Smith and Wesson, and they changed the design of the knife. His friend got very remorseful and had some major issues, and I haven't seen him. I think his name was Chris. I haven't seen Chris now in 2 or 3 years. I watched Scooch, and then I watched Brian, and so those were kind of the four biggies that I watched before I first came on here. And now if that's kind of expanded, and I watch a lot more. I probably watch too much. I need to spend more time reading. But yeah, so San Antonio is also on the Balcones Fault. And so here's the thing, and here's what I would recommend you do. There's a couple of websites. So one of them is Nuke Secrecy, NUCSECRECY, and it's actually going to take you to a different website. But what you can do is you can choose a nuclear device and pinpoint where you think that nuclear device is going to go off. Now, if you do an airburst, remember there's there's not that much fallout. What fallout will be concentrated in the area of the burst, the blast effect. So you can do both airburst and ground burst. Now, when you do a ground burst, it will give you the plume that shows you the radioactive fallout plume and the estimated casualties and everything else. So you can, I recommend you do that, play with it. Play with the ICBM type warheads that are available, not the Tsar Bomba. They won't have any way of delivering it to us. So take a look at that. Make a plan based off of what you think the best targets are going to be in and around your area. And that should give you an idea of how to be prepared for that. The second thing I want you to do, and that I do, is I love the Ice Age Farmer. He got kicked off because they told him to quit talking about the grand solar thing, and so he is not allowed to put anything else out anymore. He was another one of those. Yeah, great. He was another one of those ones that I watched religiously. But the other one I want you to get in the habit of looking at least twice a day is Windy, WINDY.com. And so the reason is because if there's going to be a nuclear happening event, and if it's going to follow the wind direction, that's why they would want to have weather balloons with wind direction and speed, by the way. So you can tell what the fallout plume is going to be. I don't believe that the people who attack us or that we attack them are going to use ground burst. I think it'll all be air burst because people who want our country want our natural resources. And so they don't want to have to pollute everything to where it's going to take a couple hundred years before they can come in and actually capture those resources. So they're going to do everything they can to avoid contaminating those resources that they want to acquire. That's why I think our number one threat is going to be a cyber attack. Our number two attack, and I saw somebody mentioned it, is going to be an EMP from one of those balloons. And so that's my that's my prediction for what it's worth. Let me see. Well, Jack, that's true, and so, but I'm not one of those guys. I prefer to talk about what we can do to live through it. Yes, I agree with you, Rapture. I agree with you, and thank you, Linda. Okay, so windy.com. Take a look at which direction the wind is. Earlier today, the wind was coming out of an area in between Abilene and Dallas. So that was pretty good for me because, Abilene is a target because it's got Dyess Air Force Base and the B-1 bombers. Carswell Air Force Base in Dallas is a target. I don't think Fort Hood's a target. I would not waste a nuke on a ground unit that can't leave the continental U.S. without other aircraft or seaborne transportation. So they're kind of a lost asset. Any ground-based military that can't be moved overseas to attack the enemy without either aircraft or seagoing vessels. If you're taking care of the seagoing vessels and the aircraft, why would you worry about them? They can't do anything to you. And that 5.56 millimeter bullet only goes so far. Okay. So with that, Exodus. I am currently, Jack will understand, I'm currently doing this consecration of St. Joseph, and really good stuff about the priesthood, the Aaronic priesthood, and the patronymic priesthood and everything. Oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. But anyhow, Exodus, where are we? Numbers, there we go. Okay, so this is how you shall bless the Israelites. Say to them, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So with that, I just want to encourage you all, do me a favor. Prayers are always helpful. But more important than that, we are in this together. So we need to be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because the only way we're going to get through this is for all of us to work together, because togetherness is the key. Take care, everybody. Thanks for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next Monday. We're going to have Prepper Potpourri. So see you all next Monday. Bye-bye.